Good morning and welcome to Equity Story, the Wednesday, 6th of September. We've got pretty much me, obviously on my own, but don't have much news this morning company-wise, but I've got a few things I'm going to go over. Namely, we're going to look at RMD. We're going to look at the rebalancing for S&P 200 and 300. We're also going to have a look at NVIDIA and the IA space. We're going to have a look at the RBA rates from yesterday and the GDP numbers that are going to be coming out today. And we're also going to have a look at oil and gas because that's also quite interesting. Before I start, you've got an Equity Story disclaimer right in front of you. Pretty much as always, we mean everything I talk about, it's going to be based on general advice. So all about the actual story itself and all about the technicals of it. All right, further ado, let's move on. I'm going to change screens. So I'm going to start with looking at pretty much what happened yesterday, right? So the markets in themselves. Just give me one moment. I'm just going to get out of this and change it around so you can see exactly what I'm looking at, if I can. And where are we? Okay, here we go. So new share, we're going to look at this. So last night we had RBA rates decision was fairly expected, right? Left it on hold. We expected that. Would have been an absolute shock if that did anything else. Then the minutes came out afterwards, obviously with Laurie. This is his last speech before he goes away as a new person coming through. Just talking about, what expectations are, why they did that. I mean, fairly standard word, really. When you come to it, they did open the possibility of more further rate rises, but they have to say that, of course. I mean, all depending on the numbers. And the numbers at the moment are just pointing out that inflation is going lower. So if that's the case, I don't think it's going to be any difference whatsoever. I don't think we post-peak, I can't see interest rates going up anytime soon. So that's the good news, right? We had a little bit of a better end yesterday. So what happened in the markets last night? So let's have a look at that. And we've got S&P 500 down slightly, Dow Jones down slightly, and NASDAQ just in the red, right? So a fairly uneventful day. And I think that if you look at the markets themselves, there was nothing there, right? To drive the markets pretty much. So uneventful, markets sort of meandering, waiting for the next thing that might pop up. And where it's going to be finding it, probably from the economic news. So what have we got this today? Well, we've got the next few days. So let's look at today's, we've got GDP growth, right? For us. So that's going to be interesting. Forecast 1.5, consensus 1.8, last one was 2.3. I think the economists are pretty much saying we're slowing down. So with that peak of interest rates, that's probably saved our economy here to going into a recession, I think. So at least hopefully that we'll see a bit of a soft landing. So we'll see how that goes. But I think generally speaking, we're going to probably be okay. And that's good news for us, good news for the traders, good for investors. You can possibly start setting yourself with a longer term view. Okay, I might be looking at buying opportunities, really, if there's any movements, right? So from that point of view, it's good. All right, so what else can we talk about, really? So we got the GDP growth, RBA rates, and just having a look at the US, just to see if there's anything else in there. Not super exciting, is it? By Thursday and Friday, is anything here there? No, it isn't. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to the next screen, and we're going to look at RMD. The reason why I have a look at RMD is because it's had a really poor performance post its results, right? So why is that? So I've been racking my brain going, what's going on here with RMD? It's been re-rated pretty much, but there was talk about RMD possibly seeing a bit of market pressure from a source that I'd never thought I'd probably see, and that is from weight loss drugs, right? So basically this is how it's going to work. If the weight loss drugs work and people take them, then pretty much what's going to happen is you're going to have less people maybe overweight, maybe needing those machines, right? The CPAP machines. That's obviously going to be pretty problematic for RMD and probably FPH as well at the same time. So, jury's still out, of course. This is all speculation, and you can see analysts at UBS have dug. This is from IFR, right? Analysts have dug on a dual-listed healthcare stock Arisma due to the rise of competitor treatments for weight loss drugs like Ozempic. So obviously these drugs looks like work and pretty hot at the moment. So there's going to be a big push for the overweight people out there to go and try these drugs and see if that works. If that does work on a mass scale, you are definitely going to probably see people maybe going, okay, well, we're losing weight. I don't have as much trouble with breathing, and apnea maybe will be more problematic for me to sleep at night. So maybe I don't need the machine. So that's the train of thought here for these analysts and everyone else. So they slashed the price targets by 36%. This is the UBS analyst, right? This is why it's languishing at the moment. So would I be buying a Resmed? And I'm going to have a look at that. We're going to have a look at that chart in a moment, but no. So they're basically saying the stock no longer looks exceptional on growth versus peers as well. So at the end of the day, maybe there's a bit of a transitional work going on through here. And when the chart looks pretty dire, like it is, I am probably thinking, do not pick a bottom here because you're going to get dirty fingers. You probably just want to wait and see actually what happens, right? So that's that. All right, let's move on. So let's look at the next thing, and that is another one that I've seen news about. Well, with September is the rebalancing, right, of S&P 200, S&P 300, and so on. And we talked about, me and Claude talked about S&P 200 and 300. It could potentially, if you get a stock that is being pushed into these indices, you might see the indice hugging funds out there go and pay up for these stocks and put them into their own portfolios. So what are these stocks? Let's have a look, right? So let's look at, first of all, on the 200 to see what they are. So this is the 200. So effective portfolio is September 18th. So that's when they're actually going to be added to this S&P 200, right? SX 200. So the only one really that's interesting. So there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 editions. This is 200 index, by the way. So 5 editions, 5 removals. Now the removals are pretty, I suppose, fairly high risk. Don't have any profits whatsoever. I don't think any of them have to, maybe except Abacus. They have to be removed because they split, right? So that's understandable. But BrainChip is just a speculative stock. LK is a speculative stock. Sara's got some revenues, but it's still probably high risk, I'd say. Imogen is another high risk stock. So really, they are being replaced by another speculative stock. Unfortunately, we bit, right? RMS is a profitable company. Nurofen is the new kid on the block in the biotech space, so they're getting some revenue, so that's fair enough for the moment. And of course, DTL, which is the one that we talked about, that potentially will get added. So there you go, ASX 200. This is probably going to add some more fuel to the fire of supporting the share price. So it's pretty interesting to see how it goes. So from that point of view, I think DTL is the one that you'd probably be looking at. Maybe some neuropharmaceuticals as well might see some support as well. Okay, so that's S&P 200, right? Interesting. What about the S&P 300? So S&P 300 is coming through here. So this is, I'm looking at Live Biomark because they've got a little article on here. So of course, disclaimer, that's their research. So I'm going to have a quick look. And I've got here 10 stories to be added, right? Pretty interesting because some of these actually we follow. So we've got Stanmore Resources. We talked about it only 2 days ago, right? That's I like the company. They're coming out with some pretty good results, production profile growth, as long as the coal prices for metallurgical and PCI behave themselves in 2024. I'm expecting to go higher, right? So that's SMR, and they're going to get added. So potentially there's more incentive to see a stronger share price, right? So that's one. Quality is another one. Real estate. Yeah, it's been around for some time, which is fair enough. Vulcan Steel is a steel distributor, I think, out of New Zealand. This is the speculative lithium story in Canada, so probably could be in and out, within 12 months. We don't know yet. Macquarie Technology, we've been waiting for this one. We talked about this one not too long ago with Claude. Really, really good company. That looking good. So there's probably a little bit of a bounce possibly happening for Macquarie. Healthco is pretty good. Also getting in there. GMD, it's a mining stock, so possibly if they can show that they belong, they'll have to just deliver the profits, I suppose, at the end of the day. Satire, we talked about it as well. One of the stories that possibly, we mentioned in the top 15 stocks. for 2024. So that should also receive some love. And last one, Alpha, which is another speculative stock, but moving into production, I suppose. So it's hard to say what it's going to do, where it's going to end up. Usually these stocks go in and out like revolving door, right? So we'll see. They don't usually stay very long, and it's a really genuine story. I just don't think this is a genuine story, but we'll see how it goes. A billion market cap, big market cap. So we'll see how we go. But interesting, right? You've got some stories here to possibly the stories that we like. So there's Satire, DTL from the 200, Macquarie, MAQ, SMR in there. And as a result, we talked about as a gold player, right? It's looking pretty good. Great chart, by the way. So it's looking interesting, very interesting. So that's the S&P 200. That's the rebalancing that they're doing. So it's something for you guys to have a look at, maybe follow, and if you incentivize, right, for an investment or a trade, that it might see a better next few weeks ahead. All right, so let's look at the next thing. We're going to look at NVIDIA. So we're going to swap screens now. I think we've done this one. So let's move on to right here. And we're going to have a look at some of these stories, because there's definitely talk out there. And we've seen the performances of the share prices, right? It's no secret that they've gone very, very hard, the AI stocks, right? NVIDIA is, one of those stories that probably leading the charge in this space because of its chips, because obviously the usage of the AI processing power that needs some really good chips, and obviously NVIDIA provides that, right? So from that point of view, a really good story. But there's definitely talk from most analysts out there in the US and so on that this has gone run too hard, too fast. We could see a big pullback, right? So if NVIDIA gets pulled back, and then fair enough. I mean, everything gets a pullback eventually, right? So if it comes back, say $400, that's a 20% drop. It's still good, right? But I think it needs to, and probably will drag the other stories with them, which is fair enough. So we just got to be prepared for that. And is it $500 a bridge too far? Possibly. This is where you might be looking at some profit taking, right? At $500 around there, and then maybe rebuy it around the $400 if it comes back. We've seen this before. Look at that, right? We've seen that going up, coming back, going up, possibly coming back. So there's definitely talk out there, nervousness that we've gone too hard, too fast. We might see a pullback. Fair enough. I mean, it's just natural that you're probably going to see some profit taking. We're going to probably some natural that there's a little bit of a bubble in there because of the strength of the AI space, right? Where everyone's talking about it, ChatGPT and everything else that's been put together. It's been buzzing along. Microsoft is another one. So let's have a look at some of the other stocks, right? So Microsoft also has been doing very, very well. It's been recovering beautifully after that little bit of a pullback from them. So see that, let's come back to that trend line. Now it's bouncing, sort of heading back towards that 350 again. So that's a really nice story, and nice chart. What else have we been looking at? So let's just have a quick look at maybe team, where they are at the moment. And let me see if I can get this up right now. So Atlassian, and we're going to have a look at maybe one more after this, right? So team right there. Anyway, I know when we're looking at it, because we put it on our Einstein's, and we really talked about it. Well, I think it's Anderson, but we talked about it that this is a good little buy on the chart from this last week, and it's still looking pretty good. And I think some of the other cybersecurity stories also look very, very good. We talked about them last week, so you can definitely have a look at those. So where to next? Okay, let's have a look at. So we've done the RBA, we've done the GDP growth with NVIDIA, S&P. We looked at RMD. Let's look at oil and gas. This is the one interesting as well, right? Actually, before I do that, let's look at RMD. Like I said, I promised, right? So let's have a look at this RMD. Why you want to touch the bottom here, and you can see that's why it's just looking very, very ugly. So it's a complete change, right? It's a complete change. You don't want to touch this. You just don't want to touch this. You just don't know how further the re-rating will take place. All right, so let's move on to this WTI. Which is crude. So let's look at crude, because I think Dave sent me a text this morning saying, have a look at oil and gas, because there's a special formation going on and a great looking chart. So let's look at it, see where it is. So looking at this, and you'll see for yourself why this is looking so good, right? This is the chart. So you've got that. Come back to the trend lines. Look at there's 3 actually trend lines intersecting now. Unbelievable. So you've got a very strong candle last week. It's going on with it this week. So if you're looking at any stocks in the oil and gas space, so let's have a look at some. So look at some WDC. So WDS, not WDC. Woodside, that should be doing very, very well. And it is, it's bouncing, right? It's sort of come back and it's probably buying opportunity right now. Let's look at Santos, right? Another one in that space where, look at that. That's actually looking excellent. Excellent. Wow. Let's look at it a bit longer. Maybe look at 2 years. See if there's merit for it to buy it. So I think, look, if it stays like this is a buy and a half. This is a very, very, very good looking chart. And maybe if it breaks out like this, finishes like that, that's going to be the highest finish we've had for probably at least a year, right? And then maybe we can see that 850 coming through. So maybe there's a bit of a trade here coming through. That's looking very good. Now, the last one I've got is Karoon. Let's look where this one is at. Another, I suppose you can call it a pretty decent oil and gas player. So yeah, look at that. But it's the chart of the oil, right? Which is really exciting. So if you're looking at any space in this right now, you'll be looking at Santos for sure, Woodside, maybe not as much Karoon because it's already had that big jump, right? But Santos looks excellent. Woodside also looking very, very good. So you've got a couple of really good stories in there. Just let's have a look one more. Let's look at BP Petroleum, BPT, where it's at. So from that, yeah, it's also looking good. So it's bouncing. So that's also possibly, a little play here. So you've got some interesting stories to really have a go at and see where you can take it, right? So fantastic. All right. So we've got looked at oil and gas. I know you've got some stories in there. Last thing is let's look at some announcement, and I've only got one for you, unfortunately. And then we'll have a look at my watch list, right, which is on this side. So let's look at ENR, which is Encounter, which is next door to WA1, which has got the Niobium discovery. So, of course, they're doing the neurology. There seems to be a lot of Niobium around, mind you. So they're coming out with some decent results. But I think the market's probably expecting a little bit more, right? So it's down 11% today, Encounter. So let's have a look why. So I'm going to bring the announcement out here. So you can see large-scale Niobium RE carbonatite complex in aileron. 282 meters at 0.54 from 64 with some rare earth oxides in there, right? That's pretty good. So 19 meters at 1%, 48 meters 1%. So that's pretty good. 18 meters at 0.9. So I think the question is, for me, which is the better opportunity? Is it still WA1 or is it Encounter? Because really, if you're going to be playing something and then you're playing neurology, you want to back the better horse, right? You don't want to be on the second best or third best when they're close together in the same region. So presumably the market's expecting more, and market's saying we prefer WA1, right? From what we've seen so far. So at the end of the day, it's not bad results. I mean, the results on its own, without knowing what WA1 is coming out with, on its own, these are pretty good results, right? You're probably going, wow, this is good. But unfortunately, you've got this high marker in WA1, and you go to yourself, well, there's someone else up there next door and much better, right? So why would I be buying this in a way? So I can understand. Look, it's not terrible. It's actually pretty good, but you do have a really tough fight here. You've got really two interesting companies who are trying to get this niobium thing as quick as they can, at the best that they can, biggest they can, whatever, right? So from that point of view, yeah, it looks pretty interesting. Let's see what that's going to come up with. But when you're just pure pound for pound right now, early days, WA1 I think wins it so far. All right, so that's the Encounter for you. That's why it's probably down. If you're in this as a trade on a daily, you're probably out. Well, you're just waiting another day, but you've got to be out by 40 cents, I think. So 39 something. Weekly, let's have a look. Well, I think weekly is okay. So if it's going to be longer term, then you probably have to play that 34 cents and you're out, right? So that's how I'd be playing. All right, so let's have a look at some of these other announcements, see what's going on, see if there's anything excitement going on from our stocks, and we'll call it a day. So we've got some interesting little stocks. Metro, which we are following at the moment. I've talked about it. Look at that chart starting to form. Look at that buy signal starting to form. quite interesting. I mean, I'd probably wait till the end of the week. We're middle of the week, Wednesday, Friday. You know, anything could happen, especially with a fairly high risk, you know, penny punt in a way, because it is at 0.024 cents or 2.4 cents. So, I sold the story to you guys a few times already, right? Why I like it with his bulk set. So interesting chart, good management. Potentially this could be quite interesting play. So that's one. So Boss is another one that we've been going very, very well for us. We picked it as probably one of the other one that I actually looked at is Cameco CCO in Canada. So if you're looking at uranium plays, right, because uranium is still going very, very strongly, as you can see by BOE. Cameco is, I think, hit like 11-year highs or something, right? So this is another one you can definitely play because it's looking very good. All the other ones, just really high risk. They've got nothing except a story to tell you, right? They don't produce anything. They've got probably some assets with some uranium in it, but they'll never get up and running, right? Maybe apart from PDM, but it's still high risk in Namibia. So if you're going to be sticking to anything, probably the two that are stand out for me is Cameco and BOE, and maybe let's look at Penn. Is that actually doing anything? I haven't seen it for some time, so let's have a look if there's anything that potentially looking okay. No, that's terrible, isn't it? So you wouldn't be looking at that at all. All right, so what else is looking at? John Links, right? So another one that we really like. We've said, makes our top 15 stocks. That's looking good today too. Tilix, another one that's looking very good, bouncing nicely off these trend lines. Actually, surprisingly, Codan looks very, very good. Look at that. They're sort of trying to get, if they can get over that $8, they could quite well. So another one, SiteMiner, we follow. That's doing quite well too. Probably, I think we talked about it yesterday on ATA. If you're taking it from here, maybe, or here, if you're a trader, you're probably looking at profit because $5 is maybe a bridge too far. And maybe we're going to have a bit of a pullback in a couple of weeks that we talked about. I think Dave mentioned it, that he can see on his charts and his crystal ball that there might be a bit of a pullback. So maybe you can look at taking some profits there. AUB is still going quite well. Another one that we've got on our list that's looking pretty good. IPD is another one on our list. That's looking pretty good. So all these are in the green. That's good to see. Hello World is another one. So far we've been picking some stories that have been going. It's been quite volatile up there, but still pretty good, looking fairly positive. Lindsay, another one of ours, right? So overall, I mean, it looks decent, right? Let's look at Lindsay. There you go. But I'm probably still okay with it. I've got a longer term view. It's probably less of a trading in right now and more of a longer term view for me on this one. Car Cell's another one. Let's look at that one. Again, looking very, very good. Wesfarmers looking great too. Yeah, that's still going on with it. Duratec. Remember, this week hasn't been fantastic, right? Is it fairly muted, really? Not much give and go from anything out there to sort of push the market either one way or the other. So maybe we'll see something at the end of the week. But so far, not bad. I mean, at least the stocks that we follow, most of them anyway, are looking all right. So from that point, I'm pretty happy. All right, so I think that's it for me today. Or maybe Worley is another one you can look at because of the oil and gas, right? So let's have a look at this one. Yes, okay. No, I probably view Santos for sure. So this is the one that's really interests me right now because it could do very, very well. 850 could be, here we come. All right, anyway, thank you very much, guys, for joining. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day trading, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Cheers, guys.